The views and opinions expressed on this station do not reflect the owners, management, staff, clients, or partners. Medical House presents Bermuda's most viewed and listened to talk show. The Daily Hour starts now.
It's Thursday, the 24th day of September. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House and Lindo's. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Carla Zul and Sherry Lynn Pringle. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you haven't already, share the link, start a watch party, just get the conversation out there to your network. We have a big one for you today. The former Premier of Bermuda, Dr. Ewart Brown, will be stopping by to discuss a number of hot topics, including a couple of elections that are coming up. The Daily Play is a name that place, so Carla and I will be guessing a destination. And if you've ever watched us guess a destination, we take you around the world. So it should be fun. But just before we even get a lot to talk about, 800,000 was the magic number in Bermuda yesterday. Obviously, the largest amount of layoffs ever. But we didn't get much sleep in our household last night due to the passing of a close friend, very young to cancer, and leaves behind two very young children, 9 years old and 6. So definitely just want to send her family and friends comfort. Cancer, man, it's taken so many people way before their time as of late. So, um, you know, uh, life sometimes just, is so unfair. But that said, just wish her family and her children, especially very young children, love, strength, and hopefully they'll, grow knowing that their mom loved them dearly. On that note, Carla is having a bit of technical difficulties, so she will be joining us as soon as she has the opportunity. But a lot to discuss. Social media was on fire yesterday in regards to the $800,000. Obviously, there's still the whole idea of a debate hanging around that people would like to see the premier attend, and then the layoffs, 700 people looks like they're going to be laid off. And I know people are saying that jobs will be created through construction and so on, but we'll discuss all of that. But first, let's start with the $800,000. Well, I want to know what people's thoughts about this. Where if you read the case, obviously, I had heard about it previously. You said you hadn't heard of it previously, right, Sherry?
I heard about it, but I hadn't heard about this man's name. I hadn't heard his name. Maybe I wasn't paying attention during the reports. I knew about the case, but I just didn't know that he was missing. I didn't know that they were having problems finding the money. What yesterday showed us, though, is the whataboutism
Mm-hmm.
came about again. Like
Yeah.
it automatically shifted to, well, what about
Yeah.
decade? What about? And it's like, come on, people! Everybody, each party has had their share in um, something that's just not right, not above level. But we can't keep doing this. What about? What about? We can deal with all of these issues at the same time, right?
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I think someone had posted on my personal Facebook page in regards to that. It's like, okay, we give this a pass because it's the political party we support. We give the Morgan's point a pass because it's the political point. Why not just hold people accountable across the board? I think we deserve better, and we should act like we know better. To keep doing what you just explained helps no one, because at the end of the day, this is just more money out of the pockets of the people. But I'm going to say something that may surprise a lot of people. This may surprise people, but I read the Premier David Burt's response that he posted somehow this morning, and people could say it's politics or not, but I genuinely accept his response because I do believe that he said he got it wrong and he's not perfect, and I accept that. I accept that. And what I'm going to say to that, why I accept it and I appreciate him doing that, whether it's an election or not, is the fact that you still have people that don't accept things that have happened previously. You still have people that believe that certain deals that were done were good. You still have people that refuse to accept that they did bad deals, right? So again, some people may not like the fact that I actually accept the premier's statement, but I think he does accept that he was wrong. He took responsibility for it, and to me, obviously, I don't want to see it happen from jump, but he took responsibility. And I mean, he didn't have to mention the other stuff like that, and I think that's what you were referring to earlier. You don't have to mention, oh well, the OBA did this or the OBA did that. You know what? It was a mistake. We messed up. But let's make it right now and ensure that we don't do it again.
Right.
And so I understand the anger. I think it was silly. I think it was a bad decision. But I'm not going to harp on it beyond that to say that he should be, we should, I don't want to use the term, we should keep going on about it. I think from the public perspective, we need to do better than relying on the media to update us on stories. We should have known that this happened prior, and we need to keep the pressure on to make sure that it doesn't take an election for a politician to take accountability for their actions. Again, that could be politics, but he did it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the biggest issue of yesterday, though, was the South Peace situation. And I just don't get how people are trying to play down the largest layoff in history of the country as if, well, the hotel needed to be redone or da 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 da. And tell that to the 700 people who are now going to be out of work. And as you saw on my personal Facebook page, some of those people began to speak.
Mm-hmm.
This is trickle down stuff. I remember leading up to the 2017 election, the Premier David Burt spoke a lot about the ripple effect, ripple economics, right? Well, this right here, this is bad for Bermuda, regardless of what you do for a living. It's bad. And my hope is that something, I don't know if it's going to take a magic wand, but something happens to inject life. And let me explain why it's bad, because it's no point me just sharing my opinion. Fairmont Southampton was the key driver in Bermuda's tourism industry. Key driver. What I mean by that, conferences and events, it was the largest property, right? It's pretty much the most rounded property in terms of what they can offer. From a local perspective, the amount of events that took place there that kept people with second jobs or gave people the opportunity to make even more money. This was huge for the Bermudian economy. So to downplay it and act like, oh, well, the hotel, it's not about the hotel, it's about the people. And let's be very clear, Bermudians have been down this road before. When people start to say, oh, well, the hotel needed work and da-da-da-da, right? We've seen hotels close in Bermuda before and never open back up. I don't want to be a pessimist, but we've seen this movie before. There are people who say, well, there are many large hotels around the world who've done big upgrades and total renovations, and they've been done in stages. Well, you don't have to look beyond Bermuda's shores to see that. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's done to keep the hotel properties open and obviously people employed. I'm sorry, Carla, I've been blabbing on you.
Just like, where is she?
I'm sorry. Hold on, folks. Let me bring Carla into the conversation. This is my apology. Because definitely want to hear her opinion on this. Carla's here. Carla, jump in. Sorry, you probably have a lot to say. Go ahead.
I caught the tail end of one and the beginning of the other. I might as well throw the whole newscast in the trash. But anyway, let me say this, because you've questioned me publicly, Jamal, I thought this was already known about that gentleman disappearing. I've known that forever, and I could have sworn it was public knowledge. I feel badly that Ms. Trott's being left holding the stick in at least because she said that no demand payment was made of her. That's when I found out he had left back then. I don't know how, but it still falls on her. And I feel sorry for her. Some people say they don't, but I do, because he's now gone. But then I saw the WhatsApp yesterday. So is he that hard to find? And one more thing on that is, government didn't willingly make that statement. I think government was forced to. And I'll tell you why. Because I got all the press releases, every single one that the government sends out. They never sent one out yesterday to say that he's disappeared. So I think that their hands were forced. And that's why I feel, is it a political machinery in there? With the hotel, a very good friend of mine, she's been stressed about this because it was leaked and the staff didn't know. My heart hurts for these people. It's easy when people say, oh, well, layoffs just reduce hours. But when it's down to zero or, slow down, like the slow season, they learn how to navigate that. But to think that all of those people, whether they're local or guest workers, will have nothing up against the fact that there aren't many jobs seemingly available in the economy, that's gotta hurt. That has to hurt.
Yeah, and it's, when I saw some of the comments, it's like, I guess you really have to feel it to understand it, right?
I don't think people realize there's already so many people unemployed or underemployed, and you're looking at a big group of people that's all they've done all their life, hotel work. And so it's not like you can say, well, okay, well, let's just come and work at this company. I think it's going to put immigration on notice that they are going to have to be really, really stringent, really good at who they're giving work permits to, because there are now, in addition to everybody else who's unemployed, there's 750 people unemployed too.
A big part for me is also the mental health side of it. Imagine you've worked there for 20 years, 30 years, or even you have a mortgage to pay, whatever, the mental stress. So I hope that people are really sensitive that this is a whole nother level of stress.
I just think I know over the last 2 minutes we focused on the people at the hotel, the workers, but this is bigger than them, because it is a ripple effect, because these people will no longer have money to go to the grocery store to pay bills. They will no longer have the health insurance to go to get what's needed health-wise. So when I say it's bigger, I'm not just talking about them having jobs, everything that having those jobs puts into the local economy. Let's go through some comments. We have quite a few. Elizabeth says he had a very good response. He apologized and took accountability. I think that is in regards to the premier. Kaiwan Brown says that's leadership. Amanda Kelly says accountability and responsibility is part of growth. Change is hard. Tamara Richardson, one can accept that you were wrong, but the electorate deserves to know who was held accountable and what has changed. Otherwise, we have to ask what will change. Well, this is key. While the response is great, it's almost like taking you back to the incident with former ministers De Silva and Keynes. Well, should there be resignations? Who was reprimanded for this? Right. So that is a good question. And it's not just a question. These are the questions we need answers to, because an apology could be too routine and too easy in this respect. Elizabeth says that's what Hamilton Princess did. I don't recall them shutting down. Yes, they did phases of 3. Joe Marr says all those people laid off in Bermuda is huge. Tamara Richardson, at what point will we be honest? The hotel workers went through the entire summer in limbo when in effect they could have been seeking more permanent options. It is indeed a sad day as we enter the winter months with so many unknowns to the cabin. Now, let's stop there. We did have someone who did find out yesterday comment on my post yesterday. So this is not something that the employees, they may have thought of it. They were not told, right? It may have been leaked, but many of them were not told until pretty much when we found out, not the exact time, obviously. And so I think that is really unfair on them, extremely unfair. And Nikki De Silva says, we've lost Lowe's, Marriott, Sonesta, Belmont, and the main part of Elbow. I pray Fairmont Southampton doesn't suffer the same fate. Heart goes out to the employees affected. And that's what I mean by Bermudians have been down this road before. Go ahead, Carl.
Have a little insight on it because, like I said, a friend of mine reached out to me. They had heard the story was leaked by an email that went out by Jeff Sousa. That's how it all opened up. And then they were demanding.
We don't want to call names on this show, Carla.
Sorry. He didn't leak it. It was an email that was composed that was leaked. They demanded to know answers. It's been about a month now that they've been asking because they heard this, and they kept being told, we're going to tell you something. We're going to tell you something. September 21st was the day. Because I remember her reaching out to me literally on September 21st. She was like, to me, from midnight, it's the day we need information. And then they pushed it on. So they kind of felt it coming. And because they were getting paid, I think that's what they were using to hold them at bay as such. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't make it any less devastating.
Mm-hmm. But this has happened at every hotel on this island, though. And so, this is hard for Southampton Princess.
Yeah.
But I have a friend who's worked at another, like Mid-Ocean, for years. And just made redundant, and how they select who they're making redundant in places that are continuing to exist is a little suspect also.
Indeed. Watch the clock, guys. Watch the clock. We have to run. We do have Dr. Brown coming up. We're going to go to the news. We'll try to get to as many comments as possible. I'm going to go to the news. We'll be right back. Pay some bills, stay on here and do this for you, and then come back with Dr. the Honorable Ewart Brown as our guest today.
Premier David Byrd coming under heavy fire from members of the public after it was revealed by the Royal Gazette that an American man who, along with his Bermudian business partner, secured an $800,000 loan from the government has disappeared without paying the monies back. However, in a lengthy Facebook post last night, Premier Byrd shares that the loan would not have been considered had there not been a Bermudian partnership, adding every financial order was followed, advice from technical officers for the protection of the government of Bermuda was accepted, and due diligence was performed. Hundreds of hotel workers face redundancy because of the closure of a leading Bermudian resort for almost 2 years, the Royal Gazette has revealed. A memo to staff from Karen McDonald, the general manager of Fairmont Southampton Hotel, admitted the 18-month shutdown for renovations would mean 700 layoffs and cause significant hardship for many. He said, although not wholly unexpected, it nonetheless marks a very sad day for all of our colleagues, Fairmont Hotels, and indeed Bermuda. The South Shore Hotel, hard hit by the COVID-19 crisis, is to get a $100 million refurbishment with a projected reopening in April 2022. Turning to American news, outrage and heartbreak boiled over into protests in many cities across the U.S. last night after news broke that none of the 3 officers involved in Breonna Taylor's death were charged with her killing. More than 6 months after Taylor was shot to death after Louisville police officers broke down the door to her apartment while executing a warrant, a grand jury decided to indict only one of the 3 officers involved on first-degree wanton endangerment charges. The charge applies to the risk put on Taylor's neighbors, but does not hold the officer responsible for her death. Today is Thursday, September 24th, which means it's Remember Me Thursday. It is an international social media awareness day that brings attention to the millions of adoptable pets awaiting in shelters and honors those who haven't made it out. You can celebrate by using social media to share stories of the animals you have adopted and how they changed your life. You can also light a candle to show respect and mourn the animals that were never able to make it out of the shelter. Turning to weather, Bermuda's high today is expected to be 80. Meanwhile, the high in New York City is expected to be 79 and 55 in Manchester, UK. And don't forget, Medical House is your #1 source of PPE supplies, masks, face shields, disinfectants, sanitizers, gloves, gowns, no-touch thermometers, and so much more at the lowest prices. Visit Medical House at 22 Mill Reach Lane in Pembroke. And don't forget, on a programming note, to tune in to the full100radio.com tonight for nighttime jams featuring some of your favorite romantic classics. That's it for your Daily Hour news break.
All right, let's go pay some bills. We'll be right back with former leader of Bermuda, Premier Dr. the Honorable Ewart Brown.
Good day, Medical House Doris speaking. Can I help you?
Medical House is Bermuda's leading one-stop shop for healthcare. Bermuda's top doctors, dentists, care homes, and the hospital choose Medical House for a wide range of products.
Anything that we ask them to do, they come through.
These same professional quality products are available to you for home health care.
If we can use them, we definitely do so.
Medical House is best known for its uniforms and footwear. It also has restaurant uniforms that stand up to even the toughest shifts. If you're on your feet all day, Medical House has comfortable and stylish shoes that are also durable and easy to clean. Everyone needs some help cleaning up, and Medical House has got it. Leading-edge janitorial, facility, and maintenance supplies are all here. Medical House is on Millreach Lane in Pembroke, where there's private parking right outside the door. Call or visit Medical House today.
We're welcoming the return of a popular feature this month, Bragg Live Food Products. Paul Bragg was the man behind the products, and during his lifetime originated health food stores and promoted nutrition education throughout the media, helping us make healthful choices when we shop for and prepare food. Best known for his live cider vinegar, Bragg also brings us a variety of super nutritious and flavorful foods and condiments. Try Bragg Organic Sea Kelp Delight Seasoning, Herb and Spice Sprinkle, and raw unfiltered apple cider vinegar. Nindo's, why go anyplace else?
All right, welcome back. It's the Daily Hour. Don't forget, you can tune in on Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel because we'll be going live on Sunday night to discussing some key constituencies in the Bermuda election. We're on Twitter, Twitch, as well as our websites, thefull100radio.com and thedailyhour.com. Without further ado, let's bring in the former Premier of Bermuda, Dr. the Honorable Ewart Brown. Sir, good morning. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
We're good. Well, first off, we thank you for waking up early because you're probably, retired, enjoy a good, rest during this time normally. So we thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I also have a 9 o'clock tea time.
Oh, all right. That's what retirees do. All right. All right. Sounds good. So let's get straight to it. We're a bit behind. You've retired. You're off the scene, not even practicing anymore, correct?
Medicine? No. Right. That's correct.
All right, so retired from politics, retired from medicine, but it seems your name keeps coming up. And, there was this recent ad about you. You probably haven't seen it, but there was an ad.
I saw it last night for the first time.
Oh, I'm glad you saw it then. We can discuss it.
It's nice to be remembered.
But yeah, they remember you. I'm not sure if it's, but they remember you. But let's just talk about it for a bit. There's this perception that you are behind the PLP. There's this perception that you're still directing the PLP, telling them what to do. You're advising Premier Burke. Why is it, first off, are you still behind the PLP, and are you involved in the upcoming election?
Well, first of all, I'm a lifetime member of the PLP. I am 100% behind the PLP, but no, I'm not involved in this election. I haven't been involved in an election for quite a while. But it seems that there must have been something that got on their minds. And so therefore I get to live rent-free in the mind of the OBA.
Hmm. Well, there was also an article that was rehashed from 2 years ago where the former leader of the PLP, Mark Bean, was quoted as saying that you are behind PLP, you're making the calls. And so it's not just the OBA, it's a former person who was involved in the party that says this. And, people will believe it. Why can't you shake that? I'm not behind the PLP, I'm not involved.
Well, I said that I am behind the PLP, but I don't make any decisions. All of that is a figment of somebody's imagination. And as long as they feel that way, and I know that their attention is being pulled off to the side, then that's good. Mm-hmm. That's good. If they want to go back 10 years and remember me, I appreciate the recognition.
No, Dr. Brown, Mark Bean, who you appointed, first appointed to the Senate, has started the FDM, and now former PLP MP Patrice Minus has joined. What are your thoughts on former PLP MPs leaving to start this or to be a part of this new party?
I think it's wonderful, quite honestly. If you look, I was telling someone last night that if you look at the history of the Bahamas, where there was also a United Bermuda party, you will see that the history of Bermuda follows very closely. And what happened in the Bahamas was that the UBP was eventually wiped off the planet. And then a new party was started, similar to the new party that's being started in Bermuda. And it was started by people who were the students or the proteges of the former Prime Minister Lyndon Pinley. And they formed a political party. And as a result, the country matured. And I'm so looking forward to seeing Bermuda mature politically so we can get out of the popularity contest and get into real politics.
Now, I don't know if you're aware, but the youth have been asking for a debate between the leaders of these three parties. And up to this point, Premier Burt has refused, he says, to participate in any debate against any party that does not have the potential to become the government. What are your thoughts on his refusal? And would you have taken that same position?
Well, no, I probably would have taken a different position simply because I'm a different person. Usually, if there's a challenge, I'll take it on. If it doesn't fit the strategy, I might impose certain conditions. If I think that there's nothing at all to be gained, and I don't think the public will gain anything from it, maybe I wouldn't participate. But that is Premier Burt's decision, and I have absolutely nothing to do with his decision.
Dr. Brown, your company was awarded approximately $1 million from the PLP government in order to help ensure CT and MRI services readily available to the public. However, some saw this as reparations for losses your business suffered due to a decision they made. What's the story with this?
It's a simple story, but anytime a Black man gets that kind of funds, it is either theft or the sale of drugs. No, it was very simple. Trevor Monis, just before the OBA left government, made an attempt as a result of his long-standing political vendetta to destroy our business. And he slashed our fees up to 87%. Therefore, we were headed out of business. We petitioned the government for some relief. The government, in turn, restored in part some of the fees. And that money that was paid out, and in fact, there's still some left. We have to go get that too. That money was paid to us because of services already rendered. It wasn't new, and it wasn't special, and it wasn't a payment without cause. It was very simple. If it had been $200, there would have been no concern.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on reparations, especially for groups like Bermudians Against the Draft, who were put through the ringer by the PLP government only to have conscription ended?
Reparations for what?
for being put through the draft, for being put through the ringer by a government, and then the government subsequently changed their decision.
Well, being put through the ringer is a rather general experience, and I suppose that would get into the gazillions if you counted all of the young men who have been put through the ringer, so to speak. But if there was some service that was provided and was not paid for, I would understand it.
So real quickly, let me jump in. Reparations, period. Forget that situation. What are your thoughts? Because it is a hot topic,
Yes.
especially
Yes.
in the Black U.S. What are your thoughts on reparations as far as Black people?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it doesn't matter how late you are in paying, but you should pay for labor. And during slavery, labor was free. But now we realize that that was incorrect. And of course, in order to atone, those people who conducted slavery should pay, just like they paid the slave owners, should compensate the slaves and the descendants of the slaves.
Mm.
Okay, well, we want to congratulate you upon your induction in the Howard University Hall of Fame in 2018. How proud are you of your alum, Kamala Harris, being nominated and now a few months away from making history as the first Black woman VP of the USA? And what does it mean for young Black women around the world who might be interested in getting involved politically?
I am absolutely incredibly happy to see what Kamala is doing and to know of her connections with Howard. At Howard, we say that that's the business we're in. We are in the business of producing leaders, and she's evidence of that. She's an excellent choice, and she is not afraid. She makes no excuses for having attended a Black university, and we just expect great things of her. I happen to know that she is committed to the positive future of Black people, especially young Black people. And I believe that she'll make a wonderful vice president.
Mm. All right. We're going to have some questions from the audience. But before I get there, I want to just move into another area. Segments of Black people in the U.S. and Bermuda feel that Democrats and the PLP have not done enough for Black voters. How can that perception that these political organizations take advantage of the Black vote or take them for granted, how can we change that perception?
Well, as long as we are under white supremacy, no government, Black or white, will have done enough. You'll never do enough as long as we are still under white supremacy. And so the current government, my government, every other government would be guilty of not doing enough, because enough would mean to break the chains completely in all 9 areas of human activity. Having not done that, therefore, we are, I suppose, guilty of not doing enough. I think one of the ways to do enough, or to get closer to doing enough, to break down one more brick, is to begin to ignore the comments that come from the opposing camps when you try to do something for Black people. See, that is one of the things that I had to learn early. I anticipated it, and that is one of the reasons I was probably on that ad, because they remember that to a certain extent they were ignored. They were put in line. They couldn't automatically go to the front of the line anymore. That it was a new day. And that was insulting to some of them. How dare this, whatever you call it, how dare he do this to us? And so it was painful. And that is why I think they didn't engage in the big conversation, because there was nothing in it for them to gain. They couldn't win it. And so they didn't want to talk about it.
And I want to ask you, I know that last time we had talked, it was an investigation that was, it was being challenged. Is there still an investigation going on?
As far as I know, we are in the 10th year of the investigation. It started off as an investigation for corruption in our administration. Having found that that's not the case, and having been beaten in court on 2 occasions, including the unlawful arrest of Dr. Reddy. We're now at the allegation that we do too many scans at the office. How the police would know about the necessity of medical tests, I do not know.
Mm-hmm. Is there no statute of limitations as to, I mean, I'm not a legal
No,
expert.
apparently not. Apparently they can investigate me forever. And so I'm assuming that that's what they're going to do, and I'm going ahead with my life.
Mm.
Premier Brown, do you, Dr. Brown, do you have any, in your time as Premier of Bermuda, do you have any regrets in a political sense of anything?
I have a number of regrets, but I only know now that they're regrets because I already committed to them. One was that we never created the alternative national services. In other words, to the conscription. My proposal was that there were other ways where young people could serve their country without the involvement in the regimental duties. I regret that did not happen. And I regret paying attention to some people when I should have ignored them.
We miss you, like, just honestly, we really do. Some of the, let's go to one of the questions that we have. Member Kelly asked, what are your thoughts on Bermuda independence?
Well, this is a subject that comes up every now and then. It is inevitable that Bermuda will eventually obtain political sovereignty. I mean, there are only a few countries left in the world that don't have it. And in Bermuda, many of the people who say that we should not have it come from countries that have political independence. So as far as I'm concerned, that invalidates their contribution. I think that it's important in the growth and development of a people that you begin to lead on yourself and your own capabilities. So yes, ultimately, I think Bermuda should become politically independent, unless we just want to continue to be dependent for the rest of our lives.
Gotcha. Makes sense. I wanted to clarify something just now when I said I missed, the directness. David Burt, someone, some days we consider one another friend, some days we don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the differences in the leadership is just simply this conversation is you seem very direct. And I think someone commented up earlier about it, like they may not be a fan of you, but they're like, I miss this kind of statesmanship. And this is not an insult to the current premier. It's just what I expected from a new premier. So that I just wanted to clarify what I just now.
Yeah, well, a lot of that is style difference. Barack Obama had a style difference that made him different from other leaders. It is just the way it is. People are different. And that is why it is important to take a hard look at your political candidates before you elect them. Find out exactly what kind of character you're dealing with. I remember saying to the people of Bermuda before the election, not afterwards, I said to the people of Bermuda, if you do not want change, don't vote for me. And I meant it.
But see, that's the honesty I appreciate. I mean, I always say about this show, if you don't like what I say or how I say it, don't listen, don't pay attention. I mean, I learned that from a scholar named Theo Dill. We're not here for everyone. We're not everyone's cup of tea.
That's right.
That's what I meant. And that's what
it also, Jamal, it is important to know that in politics, it is impossible to please everyone with any one decision. If there's a question as to whether a dock should be built somewhere, and 60% of the people want it, and 40% of the people don't want it, that's why you have government, and that's why you're not governed by numbers. The leadership has to decide whether that dock is going to be built, and if it fits the government's agenda and the needs of the country, and the leadership decides, okay, we're going to go ahead and build that dock. That means that there are 40% of the people who disagree with you moving ahead with that dock. So if you're not willing to accept the fact that you're not going to get 100% support in everything you do. If you're not willing to accept that, then get out of the kitchen. It's too hot.
Speaking of ducks, there was one up in Dockyard named King Wharf that came. You got a lot of criticism for that, right?
Yes, yes.
But and I've been very vocal about this before. Probably not said it directly to you, but I've said it to many people. There's this organization that was created under the One Bermuda Alliance that people obviously know my bias is the Bermuda Tourism Authority. And a couple of years ago, they had this big press conference with their buddies, and they claimed to have the largest, the greatest year in tourism history. And a lot of those numbers were actually cruise ship visitors. And I made a statement saying, well, from my time working in that authority, they didn't focus on cruise ship visitors. Their mandate was heads and beds. What really bothered me about this, and this is what my problem is with politics, period. Do not tell me that we're going to remove politics from an organization. When we begin this organization, the head of the organization is a former UBP tourism minister, number one. If Dr. Brown did that, it would not be seen as an independent organization, regardless if you like Dr. Brown or not.
That would be like me being in charge of the hospital. Imagine that.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I said to people, I said, my issue with this is we're now going to take credit for these hundreds of thousands of people coming on these larger ships, right? Because let's be honest, the reason the numbers are larger is because the ships are larger.
Yes, that's correct.
But we had an issue with the dock. We said it went over. It ran over. What are your thoughts on that when you see this kind of stuff? Because you're long gone, and Shari and I were talking. She had a question. GPS. You were trying to bring that, and people pushed back, and now it's like the norm. Like, what are your thoughts when you look back and you see some of the things you tried to make happen, and people are taking credit, and it all comes to fruition? Give us your thoughts.
Well, those are some of the things that make me smile, and I learned that some things are just not appreciated in the beginning, and they're not appreciated until later on for one reason or another. If we had not prepared the docks for the mega ships, then they would not have seen the numbers that they see. The overrun, yes, there was an overrun, but let me make this point, and I want to be very clear for you and your listeners. The UBP OBA describes an overrun using the following formula. The day you introduce the concept into Parliament and you say, well, let's have a budget of $20 billion on introduction, you know it's going to be much more, but you put $20 million in the original budget just so people can know that that is a serious effort and it's going to continue. By the time you get around to actually starting construction, your budget may be $50 million, because by now you've gotten much closer to construction. So the correct way to calculate an overrun should be your pre-construction figure and your post-construction figure. That is what an overrun is, not the difference between the 20 million and the 50 million that you ended up with. That doesn't make sense. But they do that to make it sound like a lot of money. Nobody wants overruns. I'm not proud of any overrun. Government projects typically have overruns everywhere. I'm not making an excuse, but overruns are not peculiar to Bermuda. Not at all.
Gotcha. Let's go. I got a lot of questions. I want to get to them. Charles Crawford says, given the OBA was unable to field a full slate of candidates, how important is this election for their survival? Keeping in mind that the PLP was unable to field a full slate before ultimately becoming the government, I believe, 13 years later.
Well, I'm not too concerned, by the way, with the survival of the OBA. I wanted the UBP, as I think the phrase I used was, I wanted to see them beaten into total obscurity, and I think that's where the OBA is on the edge of being, until the white people who overwhelmingly support the OBA are willing to get off the blogs and stop hiding and show their faces and get involved in politics. Then Bermuda's politics will look like they look today. just a hodgepodge of people, critics on the outside, and the people who are willing to run for office being a very limited number of people, limited in number, and in some cases limited in talent. And that applies to all the parties. You know, we do not have a surplus of talent with 60,000 people. That's understandable that you don't have 20 neurosurgeons in Bermuda. I mean, that just doesn't happen with 60,000 people. But I think the key to Bermuda in terms of future political, if not unity, political direction is that the white people in Bermuda have to make up their minds. Either they're going to sit on the sidelines and try to influence the politics from their position of economic strength, or they're going to get involved and not be in the number one position. But you see, in Bermuda, most white people are not willing to tolerate being anything other than number one. Period.
Dr. Brown, may I ask you a question? And a shameless plug. Your book?
Oh, that's a nice book.
Yes, and signed by you. But my question is there room for another one? Because there are some things that you've said that I don't see in this book.
Well, Sherilyn, you know, you would like to give me a lot of work to do. And I accept the responsibility for doing another one. I just can't give you a date. No, I'm going to do a much shorter book, hopefully within the next couple of years, that is more specific on a narrower topic. Yeah, what is it that was left out of that one?
I'm jotting some notes down. I'm going to send you an email.
Okay. No problem. Well, we had 800 pages that we got through, and we had to cut that in half.
Oh.
You know, so if there's a lot that, I mean, if you could see the original manuscript, you would say, well, you know, quite a bit was left out.
I'm looking forward to part two myself. A lot more questions to get through. Renee, Sherilyn, Simmons, what are your thoughts on the whole airport debacle?
Well, I just, you know, from what I know of it, and I started reading on it pretty early, I think that the way that the deal was structured, and I don't know the details, it was questionable, but I'm not sure that it has been resolved in a way that the airport is now Bermuda's airport, and the PLP government is the government that is responsible for the airport, no matter what type of deal was made in the beginning. It's time now to say that this is the LF Wade International Airport. And by the way, I like to count that among the achievements of our administration. We named that airport. Before it was just the Bermuda International Airport, and we called it the LF Wade Airport. People won't remember that, but I'm going to tell you.
I would, that definitely, I think many would agree with you. The question has to be asked about people saying this was smart strategy, and then people saying it was bad. Why would you call snappy election right now? Tamari Colbert, in comparison, how do you feel about Premier Burt striking a weak opposition and now having 3 uncontested seats? Are uncontested seats good for democracy? Should Premier Burt have defeated?
Again, that's the kind of question that I could only answer if I was closer to the situation, if I was on the ground and I understood. But I will say this. The concept of a snap election is not unique to Bermuda. And in fact, it's not the first time that it's happened in Bermuda. And that's done to give the party in power more time in order to execute the agenda. So I would assume that that's what that is about.
Final question, Dr. Brown. Bermuda is economically in bad shape.
Yes.
Many would argue it's been that way for a while, and the pandemic didn't help. As a former premier, a businessman, what do you think are what's some low-hanging fruit? Where are some pockets where Bermuda can grow its economy?
You know, I think of that every single day. My son called me yesterday from California and said, what is going to happen to Bermuda? And I said, well, I'm driving right now, and that's a heavy question, and we'll talk about it later. Bermuda is going to be challenged. in the present and the near future in a way that we've never been challenged, at least since I've been around. Things were hunky-dory. Bermuda had what I call an artificial economy, where a taxi driver without finishing high school could own 2 or 3 homes and travel 2, 3, 4 times a year, etc. And those days have left us. We now have an economy where if you're not prepared for your, in terms of skills, for your job, for your vocation, then you won't have a job. And tourism, of course, is going to be down for at least the next 2 years or so because of the pandemic. We weren't doing too well without the pandemic. And so we need to get the brain power together. But more important, and I think that the government did begin to bring together different people with skills to look at that issue. But I think one thing that I would urge them to do is begin to listen and to listen to those who have seen the movie, and I'm accepting myself, but listen to people who have watched how Bermuda operates and learn from those experiences. Don't just talk about encouraging Black entrepreneurship. Make it happen. Make it happen. I've been hearing a lot about Black entrepreneurship, but I haven't seen a lot about making it happen. Yes, there are going to be mistakes. I just heard the story yesterday about this $800,000. That it quite possibly is true, but the timing of it is clearly related to the election. But the point is that you're going to make mistakes. The way you avoid those mistakes is to try to make use of the talent around you, make use of those who have seen that movie and who understand how best to avoid it. You never avoid it 100%, but you can make fewer mistakes. But because you make a mistake doesn't mean you don't keep trying. And that's what I would urge the government of Bermuda, not to be discouraged by their mistakes. A man should never be defined by his mistakes.
Indeed, indeed. Dr. Brown, I want to share one more thing with you. I did say last question, but hey, I guess I made a mistake. Talent J. Clark says contingencies are usually at a margin of 10 to 20%. The wharf, the port, health, Barkley, and Port Royal were grossly mismanaged when overruns came to over double the cost. Thoughts on that?
Well, Mr. Clark has it wrong. There were no double the cost. I don't remember all the numbers about Barkley. I was in cabinet, but I don't remember all the numbers. But I know the projects that happened under in my tenure, none of them were double the cost. They were double that original number that I talked about. You see what I'm talking about? This is how we get questions like this. The double the number goes back to the original number introduced in Parliament just to hold a spot in the budget for that project. And each year that number was increased until we got to the pre-construction level. If you want to measure an overrun, you must measure the pre-construction cost estimates against the post-construction number. That's the true overrun, not the difference between the final post-construction number and the original number that was entered into the budget debate.
Got you. Dr. Brown, it's been a pleasure, honestly. One thing I can say is, even when I used to hound you about conscription, I mean, whether you took me to lunch or you said, come by my office, you've always made time for me. So I really appreciate you always being consistent. Again, I was I'm still a thorn in your side. You got to.
Well, you were a thorn in my side. I mean, that's why I remember you.
You were my doctor. You were my doctor. But no, thank you for doing this. And please know we'll be reaching out again sometime to have you back to give different perspectives on various things that are challenging the country we all love.
No problem. And please try to make it a little later. But I want to congratulate all of you on this program. And I think it's a great thing that you've done. And I hope that you continue to do it, because it's important in Bermuda to not have an imbalanced media market.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Okay. Take care, guys.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again to Premier Dr. the Honorable Ewart Brown for making that time. Let's go pay a bill. We'll be right back. A lot more to discuss, but only 5 minutes to do it. But hey, that's what keeps you coming back.
Bermuda College has facilitated the success of thousands of Bermuda students since 1974. Today, we take great pride in providing quality instruction, innovative education, and unparalleled student support. Bermuda College is now seeking to extend its tradition of customized commitment by recruiting credentialed faculty who share our passion for delivering instruction that will inspire and challenge minds.
How did I get involved in teaching? It was through the fascination of meeting people and university, the things professors explained to me in ways that I'd never even conceived of before. To see students' eyes light up when they suddenly understand because of something you've told them why things have happened the way they have in the past or why they do certain things. I can think of nothing more rewarding than being a teacher.
To learn more, plan to attend one of the online information sessions. Times and webinar details are on the college website at college.pm.
All right, it's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House Lindo's. That was Bermuda College. Don't forget, during the show, we do show messages from the Ministry of Health at the bottom of the screen. So thanks for taking notice of those and keeping everyone safe during this time. We have Craig Simmons from the Bermuda College. He's a lecturer and economist coming on tomorrow. So a lot of good information. We just had people lose jobs, the largest number of layoffs in Bermuda. So you want to make sure you listen to that, tune in, share that as well. This is going to be on the community. So it's important that us in the community understand how we can do things to make it better and help those in our community. It may be a great time for some of those people who had skills that worked at the hotel to become those entrepreneurs that Dr. Brown spoke of. That said, we have to get to the daily play, and then we will have Carla's inspiration, and then we'll let you all go for the day. What you got for us, Sherry?
I have you going to somewhere where there are 17.28 million people. It's 16,000 square miles. The tallest people in the world live here.
Tallest people in the world.
Brazil? No, you did Brazil already.
It was the first country to legalize same-sex marriage on April 1st, 2001.
Australia.
It's the world's biggest flower importer.
Oh, Netherlands. Holland.
You got it, Carla.
Good
If you wanted me to get that answer, just say that, I could go there and have some medical.
That was too easy.
No, that was a great one, actually. That's a great one. That Carla's on fire, everyone.
She is. She's on a streak.
On fire. Once again, great conversation with Dr. Brown. Those are the conversations I think that Bermuda needs and Bermuda misses. I don't think there's any fluff when you get a conversation with Dr. Brown. It's very straight to the point. I like straight to the point. We like straight to the point. So really, really appreciate that. Carla, I just don't understand. The last 2 days you've been on fire. What have you been studying, or got bearish yesterday?
One more day and I'm finished uni, so I'm just in this vibe, and I think my brain's overstimulated.
Okay, all right. Dr. Brown mentioned his tea time, right? I must say, before we get to the inspiration of the day, I definitely I'm gonna take golf lessons soon. I just have to make sure that it's not hot outside. Before we get you guys last words, I want to just, as I said at the beginning of the show, we didn't get much sleep in our household last night. We lost a very young friend, dear friend of my wife, to cancer. He has a 9-year-old and 6-year-old daughter and son. Very, very sad night in our household, and I just want her family to know that they are in our thoughts. Words cannot give comfort at times, but to anyone experience something like that, hug somebody, talk to somebody. It's never an easy thing to deal with alone. Any final words, Sherry?
My thoughts are for the people in Kentucky for the Breonna Taylor verdict that came down. It's just tough to keep living in a world where we are just so disrespected.
That actually made me burst out in tears earlier this morning to see that. But I would just say on that note that we as a people need to continue to uplift each other.
Indeed. Once again, Thank you. Thank you so much to the Honorable former Premier Dr. Ewart Brown. Don't forget tomorrow, economist Craig Simmons. Sunday night, make sure you subscribe today. Sunday night, we'll be going on and just speaking about a few key constituencies as it relates to the election next Thursday. So next week, this time, Bermuda will decide who will govern them for the next period. On that note, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House. All recorded episodes and highlights can be found at thedailyhour.com. Stay connected with us by following us at The Daily Hour on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.